In the early stages of World War II, as tensions rose and battles raged across Europe, the Allied forces were confronted with numerous obstacles in their fight against the Axis powers. One of the most daring operations planned during this time was known as Operation Chastise. This operation was specifically designed to target and destroy important German dams, which were crucial for both energy production and the supply of water for industrial activities. At the heart of Operation Chastise was a group of men from the Royal Air Force, known as the Dam Busters. These men were not just typical pilots. They had undergone rigorous training and preparation to carry out a highly specialized bombing mission. The plan involved using a unique type of bomb, called the bouncing bomb, which was engineered to skip over water and strike the dams directly. This innovative approach aimed to breach the dam walls and cause significant flooding downstream. The operation took shape in early 1943. Intelligence gathered by the Allies highlighted the importance of the Ruhr Valley in Germany, an area that housed major industrial facilities and was vital to the German war effort. If the dams that fed the valley were destroyed, it could potentially cripple war production and disrupt the German supply chains. As the date for the operation approached, the mood among the crews was a mixture of determination and apprehension. They understood the risks involved. The mission would require flying at low altitude, making them easy targets for enemy fire. They also had to navigate through heavily defended airspace, facing flak and the threat of enemy fighter planes. On the night of May 16, 1943, the Dam Busters took to the skies. The operation was launched from a base in England, and the aircrews flew in specially modified Lancaster bombers. The pilots had trained intensively for this mission, practicing formations and bomb drops to maximize their chances of success. As they approached their targets, the tension was palpable. The crews relied on their training and the skill of their fellow airmen to stay focused. One by one, they dropped their bombs, each aiming for the designated spots on the dams. The bouncing bombs were designed to skip across the water, striking the dam walls and creating a powerful explosion. To the astonishment of the Allied forces, the mission proved more successful than anyone had hoped. The Merhen and Eder dams were breached, and the resulting floods caused extensive damage. Towns downstream were devastated, and the German industrial capacity was significantly impacted. However, the victory came at a cost. Many of the brave men who took part in the raid did not return home. Some were shot down during the mission, while others faced difficulties during their return. Despite the loss, Operation Chastise was celebrated as a bold endeavor that showcased the ingenuity and courage of the Allied forces. In the context of World War II, Operation Chastise highlighted the innovation and determination of the Allied side, setting a tone for future operations and exemplifying the lengths to which they would go to undermine the Axis powers. Though the war would continue for several more years, this mission was a critical moment in demonstrating the resolve and strategic planning that characterized the Allied efforts during the conflict. The mission known as Operation Chastise was deemed nearly impossible by many. This wasn't just any bombing raid. It required an extraordinary level of skill, especially since the bombers had to fly very low to the ground. The pilots faced several challenges that made the operation seem like a long shot. First, flying at low altitude was incredibly difficult. The planes had to navigate through valleys and avoid radar detection, all while staying just above the water. This kind of flying demanded not only precision, but also a deep trust in the aircraft and in the pilot's abilities. The crews practiced extensively, honing their skills to ensure they could handle the tricky maneuvers needed for the mission. Adding to the complexities, the German dams were heavily guarded. Surrounding them were advanced defenses, including anti-aircraft guns and watchtowers, ready to shoot down any intruding aircraft. A successful mission would require not only accuracy, but also stealth, as the Allied pilots would need to outsmart these defenses. The bouncing bomb, created by Barnes-Wallis, was another unique aspect of the operation. This bomb was designed to skip across the water's surface before striking the dam walls, a technique that had never been used before. Wallis's innovative design aimed to target vulnerabilities in the dam's infrastructure. However, this invention required precise calculations to work effectively, further raising the stakes for the crews involved. The risks were immense. Should the bombers miss their targets, not only would the mission fail, but they would also be exposed to enemy fire, likely resulting in loss of aircraft and lives. Moreover, the psychological pressure on the pilots was substantial. They had to face the reality that many of them might not return. Despite these challenges, the spirit of the dambusters was unyielding. They understood that their mission could turn the tide in the war, striking a blow against the German war machine. Each man knew they were part of something bigger, and this sense of purpose helped them confront their fears as they prepared to take on what seemed like an impossible task. Despite skepticism from many military leaders, Bomber Command of the Royal Air Force made the bold decision to proceed with Operation Chastise. They recognized the potential impact of the mission and were willing to take the risk. This decision was not made lightly. Numerous officers had voiced concerns about the mission's feasibility, worrying that the odds were stacked against them. Once the green light was given, a group of 19 Lancaster bombers was selected for the operation. These bombers were specially chosen for their size and capability, as they needed to carry the unique bouncing bombs designed by Barnes-Wallis. The crews assigned to these aircraft were also handpicked. They included some of the best pilots and navigators in the RAF, men who had proven their skills in previous missions. The training process was intense and thorough. The crews undertook rigorous preparations to ensure they were ready for the challenges ahead. They practiced flying at low altitudes, honing their skills in navigating the tricky terrain and executing precise bombing runs. Each pilot had to master the techniques required to drop the bouncing bomb correctly, practicing how to time their releases just right. Simulations were set up to replicate the conditions they would face during the actual raid. The crews faced high-stress environments, including mock enemy defenses and tight formations. Through these drills, they built camaraderie and trust among themselves, essential facets for the success of the mission. The men trained hard, aware that they were part of something significant. They shared stories, fears, and laughter, forming bonds that would help them in the face of danger. This preparation was not just about flying, it was also about mental fortitude and teamwork. As the training progressed, the air crews began to develop a sense of confidence, believing they could achieve what many thought was impossible. With each training session, the men grew more determined. They knew the odds, but they were committed to making Operation Chastise a success. As the date of the mission drew closer, excitement and apprehension filled the air. Despite their fears and doubts, these brave individuals were ready to take on the challenge, fully aware of the risks but driven by the hope of changing the course of the war. On the night of May 16, 1943, the 19 Lancaster bombers took off into the dark sky, each filled with a mix of determination and a hint of fear. The air crews, all carefully trained and bonded by their shared mission, knew that navigating through enemy defenses under the cover of darkness would be their first big test. As they flew, the night was filled with both anticipation and tension. The crews were aware that they were flying into a heavily defended area. Searchlights flicked on below, searching for the intruders, while the sounds of anti-aircraft fire echoed in the distance. The constant threat of being hit loomed over them, but they remained focused on their mission. Flying at treetop level was one of the most daunting aspects of the operation. The pilots had to maintain a steady hand, maneuvering just above the trees to avoid detection. This required immense skill and concentration. Each pilot had to be hyper-aware of their surroundings, dodging obstacles and keeping an eye out for enemy fire while also ensuring their formation remained intact. The tension was palpable in the cramped cockpits as the crew members communicated constantly, their voices steady despite the chaos around them. They checked instruments, glanced out at the dark landscape below, and prepared themselves mentally for what lay ahead. Each minute seemed to stretch as they approached their targets. As they got closer to the dams, the intensity increased. The pilots pushed through their fears and doubts. They had come too far to turn back now. The mission was critical, not just for the war effort, but for the morale of their comrades and their own sense of purpose. With every passing moment, they got closer to the moment of truth. The crews relied on their training and each other, knowing that they were part of something groundbreaking. The ride was bumpy, and the stakes were high, but the resolve to succeed only grew stronger as they pressed on through the night. Against all odds, Operation Chastise was executed successfully. As the bombers reached their targets, the crews sprang into action. They dropped their bouncing bombs with precision, just as they had practiced so many times before. To everyone's amazement, the bombs struck the dams, causing massive explosions that shattered the concrete walls. The results were immediate and devastating. The Merhen and Eder dams, two pivotal structures in Germany's industrial heart, were breached. Water cascaded down the valleys, flooding towns and destroying crucial infrastructure. The impact was significant, causing chaos and disrupting German war production on a large scale. Factories were submerged, and supply lines were severed, striking a serious blow to the German military's capabilities. News of the mission's success spread quickly. It proved to be a game-changer, demonstrating the power of innovation and bravery in the face of overwhelming challenges. Those who had doubted the mission were silenced. The daring raid showcased the skill and determination of the Royal Air Force. For the crews involved, it was a moment of triumph. They had accomplished what many believed was impossible, and their successful execution of the mission became a symbol of hope for the Allies. The bravery displayed by the dambusters inspired countless others and injected a fresh sense of purpose into the war effort. However, the loss of some of their fellow airmen weighed heavily on their hearts. While they celebrated the victory, they also mourned those who did not return. The mission had been costly, but the courage of those who participated resonated throughout the Allied forces, proving that even in dire circumstances, determination and teamwork could lead to remarkable outcomes. The success of Operation Chastise became a pivotal moment in World War II. It showed everyone that innovative tactics could make a real difference. The powerful images of the dams being breached and the resulting floods captured the imagination of the public and military leaders alike. This operation not only disrupted the German war machine, but also highlighted the bravery and skill of the Allied forces. For the Allies, the mission was a significant morale booster. Soldiers and civilians were inspired to see that they could achieve what once seemed impossible. Newspapers celebrated the dambusters, sharing stories of their courage and tenacity. The mission proved that with enough planning, creativity, and teamwork, they could take on challenges that were previously thought insurmountable. Operation Chastise solidified the belief that daring missions, even under extraordinary circumstances, could succeed. This renewed faith translated into a stronger resolve among Allied forces. They began to feel a sense of momentum building in the war effort, encouraging more risk-taking and innovative strategies in future operations. Moreover, the success of the bombing raid had ripple effects. It influenced planning for subsequent missions, inspiring commanders to push the limits and explore new approaches to warfare. As the war continued, this spirit of innovation would be crucial in shaping the tactics the Allies would use in the battles ahead. Overall, Operation Chastise marked a turning point, igniting hope and determination across the Allied nations. It was a reminder that united efforts and bold strategies could overcome even the toughest obstacles in the fight against tyranny.